Hello, Jamie from Inky&Scrappy, sharing with you today my Craft Roulette challenge number 216, red, pretzel head, and blue. So I pulled in a bunch of different Tim Holtz things because the charms, which was the random, of course I knew which one I was going to do with that one, and I thought it would be fun to kind of pull in some Tim Holtz sets. This was not where I was planning to go with this one. When you see the finished product, it was, yeah, I had something totally different in mind. So I'm starting by stamping on some Distress watercolor cardstock on the smooth side. So I'm bringing in that VersaFine Antique Sepia, maybe, ink. It's the brown. I don't know if they have more than one brown. Anyways, I did heat set that with some clear embossing powder over the top. I had planned on, some other technique stuff. It didn't happen. It's all good. So the second parameter in this one was, well, the first one was A2, which is pretty easy for me because that's my tend to be one of my go-to card sizes. So that was like a no biggie. The second one was, the color palette was baseball. Baseball to me is like red, white, and blue, patriotic. I just think of old, I don't know, like old style baseball, I guess. Like not modern baseball, but the old stuff. And so that was kind of where the Distinguished Gentleman stamp set came in. And then, of course, this pretzel. I was planning on doing pretzels and beer in the background and all the things. And I decided, nope, I'm going to bring in some stars for, that patriotic look to it. So I brought in Fawn's Starry Sky stencil. And then, of course, I might have some new to me Simon Hurley Lunar paste that just felt the need to get, used. And so therefore I'm gonna come in and do that. Now, I probably should have, abandoned ship before I got this far, because when I heat set the pretzel in the middle, it kind of warped that cardstock a little bit, and so it didn't let that stencil lay very flat on there, and so I did get some inks or some paste smushing through the stencil haphazard here and there. It works out in the end. I just, at the time, I was like, but it's pretty. So I did go and clean all of my stuff up, came back, stamped that Distinguished Gentleman hat and, I don't know, upper collar onto some Distress heavy stock, and then hand cut that out with the scissors. It was pretty easy cutting. It's not, it's not too fussy cutting. It's fairly straight cutting. So I cut those out. I wasn't happy with how the Distinguished Gentleman's collar is here. It was just too stark white for me, and so I did come in with some Distress ink in Walnut stain and just kind of dirtied it up a little bit, or added a little bit more distress to it, and I think I liked it better that way. So I did do that. I wanted that red bow on, or I wanted the hat to have kind of that, I guess it's a ribbon around it, and I kind of wanted it to have that red. I brought in the Distress or colored pencils, and it really didn't color over it. So I did bring in some Distress inks. I did bring in, of course, the red that I used for the stars, I think, which was Lumberjack Plaid. And then the only one that I had in the Distress, it starts with an A, and I can't think of it today. The archival one is, I think, Barn Red, and it just wasn't the right shade of red. It definitely gave a better detail impression. So I suppose I could have tried maybe my close to my heart dye inks to see if I would have gotten a nicer, crisper stamp with that one. But I ended up just using the first one that I did and kind of used that original, the older one, or the archival cut one, to kind of show me where the details that needed to get cut, so I could cut it a little bit better, so then it looked a little bit better. And once I had it cut, I think it looked a lot better when I cut the detail out a little bit more. I was happy with it. So my panel is still very wet here. I'm coming in with, I just grabbed a Ohuhu brown. I want to say this is thin persimmon color, and then a little bit darker one, and added a little bit of shading here and there. It's not a lot. It didn't, it was, I just needed some color on my pretzel. It was all good. So I am going to do a little bit of popping up here. So I'm bringing in some foam tape for the top of my hat. And then I will put that on top, kind of making that pretzel be the face. I'm always inspired by what Zoe on Tim Holtz's design team does. So I follow her on Instagram, and I just love all of her, distinguished gentlemen with the funny heads. And so that was definitely where this one was inspired from. So I'm bringing in those little, I don't know, they're stick charms, I guess. And of course, I went to go look for the brads that I wanted for this one and forgot to turn the camera back on. So I did just poke a hole and then pushed the brad through so I could put that little charm on there so it kind of looks like a tie. Of course, I added some foam tape onto this one as well, so it has that same dimension as the hat. And then it was still wet, and I hated it. So I walked away for a while. And I'm going to let it dry and come back and decide on my life choices in a little while. So once it was, I liked it, but I don't know. It was too much. Too much white, too much red and blue stars, and yeah. So I knew I was going to cut it down. So once I came back and it was dry, I did cut off a 1/4 inch all the way around. So, it wasn't quite so much red, white, and blue, and so it kind of framed that pretzel man in the middle, and I was liking it a little bit better at this point. I also had decided that it needed some distressing, like the brown in the middle just needed something, and so I brought in that walnut stain ink and then distressed the outside heavily. I did think that when I came in with a towel here, I put a little bit of water on it. I thought that the distress oxide ink would come off of that Lunar paste a little bit better, I guess, because it's not a distress paste. So I was thinking that it would kind of buff off a little bit more. It didn't, which was fine. I kind of liked that antique look on the stars on the outside. And so once I was this far, I was liking it a lot better. I decided it needed a nice brown border. So I did bring in some Tim Holtz 8x8 paper. I don't know what it's called. It's just in my stash. So I found one that I liked that was similar in brown tones, and I thought it would look well. So I cut that one at 5.5 by 4 1/4, and then I will mount on my card front here. I had decided to abandon ship on a sentiment. I was thinking Father's Day, but I don't know who exactly I would give it to, so I'll figure out the sentiment for the inside of the card later on. So for those Craft Roulette parameters, I have an A2 size project with some baseball inspired colors. Of course, I am using numbers on, there was a number on my pretzel, but there's also numbers on that background piece. And then of course the tie is my charm. So I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Keep getting inky and go check out Craft Roulette. Bye!